20 to 30 minutes.
And you're live.
Okay. Good morning, Doha Heat, and we're live. And we have a special guest in the office today, and it's Nourah, all the way from Kuwait. What I usually do, Nourah, is I allow my guests to always introduce themselves so that they do it justice. So without further ado, just take it away, as brief or as long as you want it to be, about who are you?
First of all, hi, good morning. My name is Nourah Al Sulaiman, and I am an international relations graduate. I graduated from the American University of Kuwait. I've always had an interest in humanitarian issues, human rights. I wanted to pursue a degree in law, in human rights law, but I didn't get a chance. So upon coming across migrant rights, I was able to start Ensaniyat. And through Ensaniyat, I was able to put all my energy, all the humanitarian passion that I had within me, I put it inside it. And so I currently run Ensaniyat's project in Kuwait, and I run Ensaniyat's project in Doha. And I am also a full-time employee at the IMF.
Okay, so how did it all start? You just mentioned that you opened your own company with the passion, because of your passion due to human rights.
No. It's
right?
a migrant rights org. It's a research advocacy portal.
Amazing.
So they have a few side projects under their umbrella. So they wanted to start a youth initiative. So I started that with them, and basically we started Ensaniyat last year, 2017, February, and then I was only in charge of Kuwait Ensaniyat, but then I took over on Doha as well, and then that's how it came up.
Okay, so how long have you guys been in Doha for the community to understand and to know about you?
A year and a half. I think the person before me started at the same time as I did in Kuwait, so about a year and a half.
Okay, so what is it that the community of Doha, should know about what Ensaniyat, is it?
Ensaniyat.
And what does Ensaniyat mean? Because I know that it's Arabic.
Yeah.
If you could translate it as best as you can with the context.
It's actually it's Persian, so we played around with a lot of words,
cool.
And we didn't want something to be very cliche. We didn't want something to be very out there. So one of the co-workers came up with Ensaniyat, and it's Persian for humanity.
Wow.
It's similar to also Ensaniyat's meaning in Arabic. What Ensaniyat does is basically I work with 3 to 4 months long cycles. So each cycle I recruit a new group of students, about 5 to 7 students. They're not necessarily university students or high school students. They're just volunteers that are interested in the cause. And then I work with them, and by training them from A to Z on all rights to do with migrant workers and domestic workers. So as you know, Qatar has recently passed an excellent set of laws that target domestic workers to prevent any abuses that take place, the problems, the technical difficulty that they face in Qatar. So, but a lot of people, they don't know about that.
That's true.
So, and I don't believe in advocacy as being something that's forced upon someone. It's something that comes very naturally, something that comes in a creative way. So I get to experiment with that through Ensaniyat. So after I train the students with what the laws are, we sit down, we debate, we read newspaper articles, we read journalists' reports on Qatar, some of which are true, some of which aren't true. So I give them that first 2 months of just pure discussions, debates, arguments even about what's written. Until they have a clear understanding of how the situation is in Qatar, and understanding that's not influenced by what they read in the media or what's written in the law or what but kind of like a collaborative understanding of it all. And then we come up with social awareness campaigns.
Wow.
So, like I said, I don't believe campaigning should be something that's done in a negative or thought of as something negative. Instead, what we do is creative ways, such as 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and also 4 weeks ago, we started our campaigning. And the first thing that we did was we passed around cups of karak. So, and each karak is like the traditional people say Arab, some say Indian, but it's a very hyped up drink here. With every cup we had a sticker on that had one of the articles of the law. So
Amazing.
while distributing these cups, we were able to engage with workers, not necessarily domestic workers, not necessarily migrant workers, not necessarily locals or people from abroad. Anyone who we came across that was fine with giving us a minute of their time, we sat them down, we talked to them, okay, how are you? How long have you been in Qatar? Blah, blah, blah. And here you go, would you like a cup of karak?
Mm-hmm.
And then we would explain the concept behind what's written on the cup. It's very simple.
Yeah.
We did not cause a chaotic scene. We did not.
Right.
We did not insult anyone. We didn't offend anyone. It was just a matter of a cup with a piece of information, and that can be thought of as advocacy.
Absolutely, and it's beautiful because you're actually encouraging awareness that may not have been there or may have been there, but very slight. So I love how you said in a positive way rather than a negative way, because what tends to happen when we think of workers, a lot of the time it's, oh, did you hear this horrible story? Or, like it's provoking but in a sad way, rather than we hear about the negative stories more than the positive stories. So it's really beautiful what you guys are doing. And is there anything you'd like to share about moving forward? Like what's next for Qatar? Do you have teens that you specifically want to train from a certain group or studies, or any? Can it be any teens?
It's anyone really, because like right now the people that are on Ensaniyat's team, one of them is a designer, the other one is he studied politics, and one studied business, one is a journalist. So it's like
across the board.
yes.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
That's the beauty of it, because I think especially with topics like this, it's not about what you've studied, but it's more about whether or not you have that interest in you, or whether you want to know something about this, or whether you want to do something about it. One of the members of Ensaniyat for this cycle is Qatari, and recently we had met with a group of people, and they were amazed by the fact that he was there and he was talking about it, and he was very passionate about it. But I think that does exist within the community. It's not seen, and
Right.
I think we just have a tendency to always look at the negatives and not
Yes.
look at the positives. And going back to the point about how I advocate for rights, or how I promote these rights, or at the end of the day, I don't have the power or the knowledge to come up with new sets of laws, or to come up with new articles or amendments to the laws. So what I do is I work with whatever is there. And I see that what's there right now, as of 2017, which is when the laws were passed, it's an amazing stepping stone if it was implemented as is. No one likes to be told this is right, this is wrong. So if you come across someone, or if you approach someone in the right way, or in a conversational kind of way, okay, so do you give your worker a day off, or do you have their passport, or how much is their salary? Do they get paid regularly every month on time and without any delays? Some people might think that when you approach them like that,
intrusive,
that it's that it's like, what are you trying to say? Especially with the passport topic, it's like, yes, of course I have their passport, what do you want? But it's not that. At the end of the day, this is a law that everyone has to follow. It's violating this law is as bad as you violating a traffic law. But it's because there's not enough light shone on it within the community. And it's not just like a Qatari community, or the migrant community, or locals, or people that are just working here. It's the community as a whole, because everyone that has a role in Qatar also has a responsibility towards workers that they have in their houses. Absolutely.
And you mentioned a few things there. Do you mind if I reflect back? No. So the question of, do you hold your domestic workers' passport? Do you give them a day off? And do you pay them regularly? Are these some examples of new laws that have come into Qatar recently that should be implemented, or should have been implemented from whenever it was set? 2017, was it?
2017, okay. August, yes.
So for those who are not aware, because this is all about creating awareness as well, do you mind to give us insight into those three, as well as a few more that are common but not necessarily known, that need to be abided by, and that we are all legally bound to?
Passport. It's illegal internationally to withhold someone's passport without their consent. If you are withholding someone's passport and they have given it to you, or they told you, okay, keep it safe with you, like there's no need for me to have it, but once they ask for it, you give it back to them, that's fine. But withholding someone's passport with the idea that me holding their passport is going to prevent them from running away, and therefore I'm not going to lose, quote unquote, all the money that I paid to recruit this worker, that's not acceptable. At the end of the day, the amount that was paid is either a very exaggerated amount if you're going to a private recruiting agency, or it's the amount that you have to pay, just like any other thing. If you want to recruit a worker, or if you want to do anything, okay, paying that amount does not give you the right to think that you own this person.
Right.
Working hours, for example, just because that's where it becomes difficult. A domestic worker lives in our house. Just because they live in our house, we think that they're available to us 24/7, which is not right. Working hours are up until 10 hours, and then you have 1 hour break every 5 hours. Or if there is like a different agreement, but they're entitled to an hour break at least. But then the question becomes, how do you measure whether or not they worked for 10 hours? Does that mean that they work for 10 hours straight? Mm-hmm. Cleaning, washing, being there around the house, helping out the house, around the household. It's very hard to measure these things. But if someone just thinks of it as, okay, 10 working hours, they're automatically gonna think, okay, no, maybe she's been awake from the morning. Let's not have her sleep so late at night. It doesn't matter. It's not a matter of calculating, okay, did she complete the 10 hours? Mm-hmm. Okay, you can go to sleep now, and it's 3 a.m. Yeah. No, it's... Yeah. No, okay, you've done your work. Okay, I think she's overexhausted, she's overworked. Let her go to sleep. Ramadan is coming up, and it's supposed to be like the holy month of giving thanks, just being kind to one another. And then it's funny because it's the month that they're really overworked
and exhausted.
Mm-hmm. It's because you have suhoor at 2-3 a.m. And then if some people, they still have their kids do have school in the morning, so they have to wake up. So here is the domestic worker preparing food at 2 to 3 a.m. and then they're up again at 6 a.m. to send these kids to school, which isn't acceptable, because then they're just living on 3 hours of rest. They're working on 3 hours of rest, and then they're working the whole entire day, mm-hmm. cleaning, and then they have to prepare food, and then you have the ghabga, family gatherings, all of these things that they have to prepare for. And then it goes from being the holy month, the month of where you have to be calm and everything, to being the most dreaded month to these workers.
Wow. So what message are we sending out about the month of Ramadan, if that's the case? That's something that people should be aware of. The month of exhaustion rather than the month of forgiveness. In this
just try to think of it as any other month. And if there is any extra work, help out. I think there is not a problem with helping out. Be considerate that just like you're fasting, if your domestic worker does fast as well, make like her working from 9 a.m. to 1 or to 2 or to 3 just to cook, okay, is going to exhaust her just as much as it's going to exhaust you if you were fasting. So I think just put that into consideration. Help out around the house. Give them rest. Ask them if they're fine. Ask them if they need a break. I think that's one of the most important things. Have that type of relationship with your worker where they can come up to you and be like, I'd like to rest for a little bit, and then I'll carry on with my work, without them thinking that it's forbidden to do so. Right,
or to be worried about that, having that dialogue with their employer. Okay, so a lot of that there that you mentioned is very important, and you talked about how advocating can be in a softer way, in a more wholesome manner, in a way that people can kind of relate rather than feel like you're intruding. So what is one tactic that you use on a daily basis to have this exact conversation? Do you give your worker a day off? Do do they take rest during the day? How do you have that conversation? I mean, what's the dialogue like?
I'll give 2 scenarios.
Yeah, please.
The scenario with workers and the scenario with employers.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The one with workers is just every day, if I'm going out to get my coffee, or if I'm going to work, or if every single day I come across a worker, and that simple, hi, how are you? how are you doing? What do you work around here? Usually at night, for example, I go to pump gas. How many hours have you been working here? Like, just that normal just conversation without them thinking that I'm interrogating them or that I'm asking questions for a purpose.
Yeah.
I'm merely asking questions just to see how the situations are.
Yeah.
That's how I start up dialogue with workers. And usually when, for example, back home in Kuwait, it's not always that they're comfortable talking to me. If they think they know I'm Kuwaiti and everything, sometimes they think that there's another incentive,
right.
Which is sad. But then once I'm talking to them and I'm having that conversation, they start opening up.
Great.
That happens on a daily basis. That's how I found out workers that work, for example, for a certain company are very comfortable, and I applaud that company for their work ethics with their employees. Stick to working hours, sticking to time, wages, things like taking a break, tickets back home. All of these are being met, and this is an international company. And I think if they're able to do that, I think small recruitment offices should be able to do that, where their responsibility is just this one office.
And
yes, and at a better level, because they have less to focus on. When it comes to employers, as soon as they hear that I do work, so anytime we're at a gathering, I'm turned as, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this, but so yes, these workers, and I'm like, why they think that I'm the human rights person that they have to
apologize for,
like watch what they say when like, for example, terminology. Khaddama is not appropriate. It's amila manziliya, or houseworker, domestic worker. It's like saying a maid. A nanny differs from a domestic worker. A nanny is more, it's thought of as a caregiver for the child, being there for a kid. But if a 25-year-old is calling the domestic worker my nanny, there is a problem there. I have these conversations with like at family gatherings amongst my friends, and there has been a change in attitude, and I like that. I don't know if that's because they're just sugarcoating what they're saying in front of me, or if it's because there has actually been a change in attitude. For example, in my own household, my parents were very I'm not painting my parents in a bad way, but they're very good with the workers at our household, and they have a really close relationship with them. They're more like family than they are workers. But there are a few things that they still don't abide by, such as the passport confiscation. Our domestic workers have given my parents their passport because they told them just keep it with them, and it's there on their table. But there's still that iffiness of, no, I don't want them to take it. But it's like, why? But what if she runs away? But what? So what? Right. She ran away. That comes down to the person. That doesn't come down to the passport. And I say this a lot of times. The passport is not legs. They don't act as legs. So it's not like, okay, I gave the worker their passport, I automatically plugged in their legs and they're free to go. They're free to run away. It comes down to the person themselves. If they want to run, they're going to run. If they're going to hurt you, they're going to hurt you. Just like you as the employer. If you're going to hurt this worker, you're going to hurt them. But if you're going to be kind to them, you're going to be kind.
Well, that's very brave of you, actually, to bring that up, because a lot of the time people do love to advocate for stuff, but it's actually happening in their own homes. Even if it's, like you mentioned, a small degree, it doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean that we cannot improve or cannot change. This is all about awareness. This is a healthy conversation for those out there who are listening, just to reflect one more time about what is it like at your own home? What is it like at the workplace? Do you have authority to change things? And if you do have authority, then that means that you can make or break someone's life, basically, in terms of how they live. So what would be your advice to anyone listening, regardless of how aware or unaware they are, or in the process, for example, the things about the day off, the thing about the passport, what action can they take now that they're aware?
I think baby steps. We don't expect everyone to suddenly give their workers their passports or abide by every article in the law. I think the first step is just go online, type Qatar Domestic Workers Law, August 2017. and then just read these articles. They're very straightforward articles. You don't need to know legal terms or have a legal background to understand them. They're just very basic day-to-day guidelines on how to treat the worker that's at your house. That should be a stepping stone. And then just observe the environment that you're in. Right now, I mentioned the thing about khadama and domestic worker or amila manziliya. Some people will actually now start using the terminology of amila manziliya, or please refrain from using the word malti, which is mine, which is also another thing that I've realized is very popular in our dialogue. No, they're not someone's property. So just terminology plays a huge role in attitude towards domestic workers. Another thing is, don't be afraid to step up. Sometimes when I'm at gatherings and I hear someone say Nadi, like, call the khaddama, I'll just tell her, call her amila manziliya. I'm not being rude, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm helping you out. Also, if, for example, I think start in your household by just having discussions with your domestic worker. Establish that relationship. Don't expect parents or older generations to automatically make that shift, because they have lived in a different time than we did. Relationships with domestic workers were very different back then. Back then, they were actually more like family. If you see a lot of people, the domestic workers at their house, they've been there for 30 years, for 40 years, and they were their parents' domestic, like when the parents were younger. And there was that closeness. But suddenly now that relationship was automatically divided. There's a barrier now. So try to reestablish that. We did a survey once where we asked 10 questions, and one of the questions was, do you think it's important to establish a relationship with the domestic worker? And a lot of people said no. Which was interesting, because that's one of the most important things at my household, to have that relationship, just so we can understand where each one is coming from, where my parents, like where my mom's coming from, where we're coming from, and where they're coming from. I think read about it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Try to open that dialogue with your parents, because at the end of the day, they kind of do have a say in that household. So try to talk, try to understand where they're coming from, maybe they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Maybe they don't know what they're doing is wrong.
Okay, I understand.
Which is where the awareness comes in through Ensaniyat.
Okay. And how about anyone who's listening now and they want to know more, genuinely they want to know if they are meeting the expectations, or actually meeting the expectations of the law. Right now they want to know, am I abiding by the law? Other than the website that you mentioned, can they approach you guys here in Qatar for a workshop to bring even their house workers along with them? What can you guys offer?
That would be great. Okay, so this cycle, which is the third cycle of Ensaniyat, is almost coming to an end. For anyone who is in London on June 22nd, we have a workshop that will be hosted at SOAS University, and the workshop aims to start up dialogue, and it's an informal training workshop about domestic workers' conditions in the GCC. So it will be an environment where people can freely talk about these issues, learn more from one another, learn from experts, learn from people who don't know much about the issue. Anyone who's interested in attending the workshop, they're more than free to do so if they're in London at the time. Also, if you're interested in joining Ensaniyat for the fourth cycle, like I said, each cycle is 3 to 4 months long, and anyone can join, any background, any age. Just contact us via our Instagram or our Twitter account, preferably our Twitter account, and then I will follow up and prepare everything that you'll need for when we start the fourth cycle around July.
Okay, so that's July this year.
Okay. And anytime anyone has any questions, we're getting to be very active now on our Instagram and on our Twitter. Feel free to ask. We do have small events here and there within the cycles, and we promote them on our social media. So, but being a part of the cycle, we do encourage that, and it's not limited to. I know I said 5 to 7, but the more the merrier, We're actually doing something now called 25 Questions, and it's part of a larger documentary that will be aired towards the end of Ramadan. And if you'd like your domestic worker to be involved in it, or actually if your domestic worker would be interested in being involved in it, do reach out to us, and I'll explain it more. I don't want to give out the whole thing now.
No problem, no problem.
So
then for you guys to promote yourselves, how can we now get in touch with you? You mentioned Twitter, Instagram. How do you mind to promote yourselves right now so that anyone can get in touch?
So our Instagram is Ensaniyat Project. So it's ENSANIYAT Project. And our Twitter is Ensaniyat _ Ensaniyat with an ENSANIYAT _
Okay. Amazing. So we can reach out to you. You guys can reflect on your current situation at home or at the workplace. If you guys are business owners, the same goes for you too. And thank you so much, Nourah, for bringing awareness today. Even if it's just one person, if this conversation has inspired just one person to change, then you're already doing an amazing job, because and I'm sure more than one person will be listening, inshallah.
I hope so. And don't think of it as being a particular person's, right?
Yeah, it's a group.
Just put yourself in that position. And at one time, like at one point in our lives, we're all going to be working somewhere.
At one, yes.
Under someone, so under an employer, and we wouldn't want them to abuse our rights. So why should we do it to someone else?
That's lovely. It's a lovely closing remark. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So everyone, guys, that's us signing out in terms of Doha Heat. And with that, I'd like to announce the Ramadan Labour Camp feeding program. There's a small group at the Pearl Qatar who have organized a community event, and that is trying to gather iftar packs for 180 workers, construction workers a day. So the goal is 180 a day. Inshallah, if we increase, that would be awesome, but that's the goal. So after this, we're going to put in the comments Nourah's information as well as the Ramadan Iftar project for the construction workers. And whoever's interested to be a part of that, we would really love you to be on board. You can donate with your time as well as dropping things off, such as milk and dates and water. So time and contribution as well. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week ahead and take care.